Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're back on track, folks. Thanks again for all the amazing comments I got. I was surprised to find out so many people are, and I wouldn't say reliant on me, but they absolutely love and appreciate what I do, and I love it too. So you're welcome. Thank you, all that stuff. Thank you again so much for the wonderful feedback. There's some people that were like, just blasting YouTube for like, what the heck did you do to his channel? Truth is, it was just a little bit of a hijacking there from some hackers. I'll have a video later describing what happened and how to prevent it yourself. It was basically just a simple mistake, and a lot of times those mistakes can be taken out of proportion, and then it just kind of gets out of control, which is basically what happened. So either way, back on track. Very minimal damage. Essentially just had to kind of start over with my computer and a few other things there. So I'll describe more about that later. I'll probably make a dedicated video just to kind of help anyone else who might be experiencing that. But hackers suck. You guys are terrible. I mean, the hackers that actually do stuff to like, to get scammers, that's a different story, because that's actually kind of cool. But just generally speaking, like, it's just ridiculous, the whole thing. Anyways, conversation for another day. We're here to analyze Bitcoin, not to talk about me. So let's go ahead and get into what's going on. So this is a chart that I have pulled up from yesterday, just a potential hypothetical playout chart for Bitcoin. If it were to continue, I'd see a rejection probably around the 65K range, and then likely to pull back and potentially bounce off this 62.5, which has already since happened. We got an initial bounce there and there when the market had opened earlier. And then, of course, a secondary potential, if we pull back, we may go range bound in this range here and bounce off our fib level here. So this to me is a good entry consideration. 60.5 is a rough estimate. It's right smack dab in the middle of that golden pocket, because again, we have a lot of confluence there, and I'll explain more about that here in a minute as to what I mean by that. But at this point here, that's the general consensus. Obviously, we'll need to update this and continue, because analysis from yesterday, analysis from 30 minutes ago can definitely be different than it is right now. And that's the whole point of this here, is just kind of get you abreast on new considerations for Bitcoin, see what's going on. So unfortunately, I missed the whole Fed meeting, all that wonderful stuff. Apologize I couldn't get you up to date there, but the general consensus is to not trade in going into it. We have some nice profit that we were able to secure on some older trades, but nothing too crazy for anything new, right? We secured some quick profit to the downside for AVAX, if I recall correctly. And then, what is it? Yeah, so Solana. There we go. Yeah, so an AVAX short, and then one of our Solana longs from a couple weeks ago. So nothing too crazy. We didn't really have much open, and that's the whole point. And I wanted to kind of just mention that, future reference, anytime a Fed meeting occurs, it's best not to trade into it, because you get some pretty aggressive trading. Now, afterwards, after about 24 hours, then the real stuff comes alive, which is what we're seeing right now. So let's go ahead and talk about this here really quick. 64.2 upwards of 66,000, some more local shorts there. Majority of them just got swept here just a little bit ago, but generally speaking, at this point, we can see a decent amount of liquidation to the upside, more so than the downside, kind of implying people feel like the top is in right around that 64K range, which I would kind of agree. There was an overextension, but let's go ahead and double check a few other things to make sure before we come to that conclusion. But we look here, we can see pretty heavy concentrations if we look at specific areas. 64.8, 65.3, which I talked about that with my community yesterday. Then of course 65.8. The easy way to understand it is that 66,000 is the more likely, I wouldn't say resistance level, but based on liquidation, there's a lot of favorability for the price to go to that range if it continues higher. It may pull back first, but from a liquidation standpoint, it would make more sense for the price to go up than down. Again, you don't take trades based on that one thing, but that is absolutely a factor that you want to be mindful of, and just recognize that. We can see a rejection off the 200-day SMA, at least just that rough estimate. It's probably more so just the fact that there's a resistance range here, and that level is, by the way, 64,200. So we had, 4 days in a row where the price action could not surpass that. Now we're retesting it. It would make sense that we're going to be, this is probably the start of a cup and handle, right? It's an ugly one, as most are, but generally speaking, what we're looking for now is a descending type of channel that usually will type of kind of a flag pattern, if you will. So we do end up losing 62.4. A logical entry consideration is at 60.5. Again, that would be perfect to be able to see that happen and, again, take off from there. Does it always occur? No. In fact, I draw a lot of cup and handle potential playouts that never happen. So please understand, this is not necessarily a reality. It's just something we want to pay attention to. If it starts forming a descending channel, the likelihood of breakout upon retesting a support range is higher. Having said that, let's go ahead and quickly look at the 4 hour. Sorry, we'll do that next. Daily time frame, money flow index super high. You generally don't want to short into that, right? Stochastic swinging up. RSI hasn't overextended itself completely yet. We bounced off of 50 on that pullback. Our TSI is high. MACD converging. There's no reason to consider a short, right? Now, is there a reason to consider a long? Yes and no. The short answer is yes. If we break through this resistance range at 64.1 or 64.2, then there's a logical consideration for a long at that point, as long as it bullishly backtests that horizontal support level. Okay. Again, it's not an exact science here, but we got 4 days of rejection now with a fifth. If we break through that level, it would be safe to say it'll probably continue higher. That's generally what we're looking for. But either way you look at it, the daily time frame does imply we're more likely to continue higher. We also have 3 white soldiers for the last 3 trading days, excluding today, which does hypothetically imply that today could be a red day. It doesn't have to be monstrously red. It just implies that we're probably going to see somewhat of a resistance, which we are seeing right now with this doji candle forming. So those are just kind of things to be aware of and pay attention to. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the 4 hour time frame and kind of see what's going on here. And just to clarify too, these little areas down here, this little there's a small CME gap still left down at the 54K range. Then we had some liquidation here that's still present between 56 and 57 as a rough estimate. So just know these areas still could contract. We could see the price pull back there. I think it's less likely at this point based on us honoring this ascending trend line. The Fed meeting essentially went, I would say, well based on what we see here so far. At least the market responded well to the news, which is again that 50 basis points decrease in interest. So all of that being said, if we look at the 4 hour time frame, we are absolutely in a situation where we're truly bullish. Now you got to recognize too, stochastic is pulling back. We just rejected off or pulled back below 70 in the RSI. That's usually a consideration to secure profits if you're in a long. It isn't necessarily a consideration just to take a short, though. You got to recognize that. Now, unless the hourly confirms, we have no reason to kind of just jump on board with a short. At this point here, we got MACD also and stochastic RSI both swinging down. So from a momentum standpoint, we've shifted some gears there, and there's potential for the price to pull back. Okay, but our trend strength is still high. We got to recognize that, and the overall trend here on the macro is looking really good. We're above all 4 moving averages. Again, no reason to consider a short. The only time I ever consider a short in a situation like this with overextension is if we've cut down below the 20-day SMA on the 4 hour. That to me is a really good trend setter. The same thing can be said about the daily time frame too. With a 20-day SMA, once you break above the 20, look at how well it held at that range. That's a consideration for a long, right? So again, I know hindsight's 20/20, but that's exactly what you want to kind of look for. Just kind of that initial like, hey, heads up, this is what's happening. But right now, I don't think we're truly in a situation where a short makes any sense. Take a look at the hourly. If we quickly understand here, we are seeing the lagging span intersect with the price action, which is generally construed as a sell signal for a long. We also have the conversion line below the baseline, and of course, we are above the cloud still. So some conflicting information, right? And if you've been watching me for a short while, a long while, whatever the case, you'll probably know by now what I'm getting at here. Anytime you have this kind of conflicting info, it doesn't make a ton of sense to trade. Again, from a swing trader's standpoint, that's mostly what I'm referring to. Like to the moon right now, it makes no sense to take a long or a short because we're in this transitionary period. However, the overall sentiment is the macro and even the 4 hour time frame are still kind of, they're mostly bullish, right? And with us breaking our descending trend line recently, essentially establishing higher highs and higher lows, honoring our current descending trend line, if you're going to short, you're going to make sure it's a tight short. Okay, I was hoping for like a push to 65K yesterday so we could short just on that overextension. Now that we're consolidating, I'm a little concerned that we're probably going to leg up again. I talked about this with my community yesterday, and there is a chart pattern that not a lot of people are familiar with. It's just because it's so common, but bullish rectangle. I think that's what we're going to be seeing here soon, either in the current range or if we leg up to that 65, 66K range before it pushes higher. If that's even a thing, it's strictly hypothetical. I'm not telling you we're going to 70K right now, but I do think we're more likely to go up than down in the overall sense. And if we start to see this pattern form here, then we're going to be in a situation where the next leg up would make sense. Okay, so again, just to give you example here, this is what that would look like. The price starts to range and get stuck there. that would essentially imply we are more likely to break up than down based on this pattern coming from the bottom to the top, or essentially ascending, if you will. That's generally how it works. So again, just a larger statistical probability, 80% probability. So we have that, and we have other confirming factors on the daily and the 4-hour. There's no reason for the price to want to go down, right? So me personally, I think a long makes a lot more sense from Bitcoin at this point than a short. But me being a patient trader, I'm going to probably wait for a bit more of a pullback that may never happen. And again, that's just me, but I don't feel comfortable taking a long going into the weekend personally, even though I want to, and I think we should. It's difficult at this exact moment. So that's kind of where we're at. Anyways, let's reevaluate when we get back to the daily candlestick closure later today. Let's see what's going on and kind of go from there. But I would just say pay attention to some of these patterns that are starting to form. And depending on how they respond to these specific key levels would be an interesting thing. Keep in mind, we do have a fair value gap down here as low as 60,700. So in a perfect world, the price continues to work itself down, fills that gap, and then we leg up here. So me personally, I think perfect entry would be 60.5 to 61K as a rough estimate for a long. Okay. Between now and then, I don't really think a short's appropriate, even though we have some windows of opportunity for a long right now, kind of telling us that, hey, you shouldn't be taking a long at this exact moment until the patterns play out. All right, that's what we got there. I hope this was helpful and you all feel refreshed and okay now. I'll go ahead and get you more information here soon. They deeply appreciate the, again, the support with everything that's happened here recently. And just know that the odds of that happening is insanely low now that I've taken a lot of good precautions. So appreciate it again, the support. You guys are awesome, and gals too. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks again for your time. Take care.